Hey guys, so today's video is something I've been working on for a while, and that is we are looking at the guide to moving from console to PC in Battlefield. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, ever since I've switched from console to PC. And so making a move, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of learning, testing, settings, sensitivities. You're essentially relearning the game. Like I said, it's always been in my mind to make so I can help other players with the move, make it easier, and push them in the right direction with things. So this is mainly for Battlefield 5 and Battlefield in general, in future titles and etc. It's all going to carry over, sort of similar stuff. But a lot of it does relate to all FPS games as well. So the way I've organised this video is I've broken it down into 3 parts. That's firstly general tips, secondly settings, and thirdly finding your sensitivity. Now each section plays into each other, so I would suggest watching all of it if you can, but if not, that's fine. I'll leave timestamps in the description if you want to skip to whichever part. So let's get on with it. General tips. Number 1 is, play the game. Grind it, invest the hours. There's no point in moving to PC if you give up on the first hurdle. Don't be afraid to be bad. You're essentially learning something new. Like anything in life, the more you do something, the better you will become. Number 2, it's a different game. Battlefield 5 on PC plays differently to the console version. Now the way it differs is it's more positional, so try and focus on that or work on your positioning. So quick summary, essentially being in a space where you have the advantage in winning that gunfight over the enemy. I have made a video on positioning where I break down clips and demonstrate what is good positioning and what exactly is going on. So if you'd like to check that out, please do. I'll leave you the link at the top and a link in the description as well. But if not, that's okay. The 4 fundamentals are, you always want to have the advantage. You always want to minimise your exposure. You want to be aware of your surroundings, what's going on, react to it, and you want a foreplan. Where are you going? What are you doing? What objective are you taking? How am I getting there? What cover am I using? What weapon am I using? How can I use my weapon to its effectiveness, the ranges, or do I have to play close range, do I have to play mid range? And that's the sort of things you should be thinking about, these 4 key points in mind. Again, if you want to watch my previous video, please do. Again, in another area where it differs is weapon ranges are extended on PC, so players will beam you from longer ranges in all classes with all types of weapons. The assault rifles, Sturmgewehr, M2, all of them really, ribby rolls. You will die to longer mid-range gunfights, and that's why I say positioning is key on PC, so you really have to think about engagements. The medic class, SMGs, the ZK for example, you will think a lot of people are cheating by the distance that they kill you with it, so don't be surprised by that. Additionally, don't re-peek a sniper from the same spot, find a different line of sight, another position, because believe me, they will hit you. You can get away with it on console, but you won't get away with it in PC. Even more casual players, they will hit you. Weapon balance. Now, although statistically the same, the balance on PC is different. The way weapons are played or used differ from its console counterpart. Like I mentioned before, the weapon ranges are extended. Players are more accurate purely because of the input method with the mouse. Weapons used on console are better or worse. So just to make you aware, that there will be a case for relearning all the weapons and all the weapon balance just for the PC version of Battlefield. For example, MP40, quite usable on console. It was in fact the first weapon I got 10k kills with. But on PC, it's just not viable. Is it usable? Yes, but it's very weak on PC. Additionally, the slow fire ZK. quite popular amongst good players on console, and they can do very well with it. But again, on PC, it's very weak. You just get out DPS'd a lot. Like the fast fire ZK is just better. The slow fire Z, it just doesn't fit in. And then on the other side is the bar, for example. I hardly use the bar on console. I much prefer the FG42. But on PC, the bar, oh my god, it's a god tier weapon. Like, it's one of the best weapons in the game. The semi-autos like G43, Turner are very strong on PC. Gewehr 1.5 as well, very strong. So if you want to try them out, please do. So what I'm saying is, just be aware that there will be a case of relearning the weapon balance just for the PC version of Battlefield 5. And just to quickly mention, it will be interesting to see how DICE handle the weapon balance in 2042. As it's got crossplay, tough situation there, as the same weapons are not the same. Number 3, record your gameplay, either through GeForce Experience or AMD equivalent. Sorry, I don't use that, so I don't know. OBS, Streamlabs, watch it back, look for mistakes, over-aiming, under-aiming. See why you died in a gunfight. Is there anything to improve on? Is there anything to learn from it? It's a really good point. Number 4, keyboard is the skill level on PC. I'm still learning myself. But one thing I've found is to play RPGs where you use the keyboard a lot, using different buttons to pop potions, use special moves. It helps with dexterity. From my experience, played RPGs and I'm sort of using keys that I've never even thought that I could use before. Number 5, use combined arms. So essentially it's AI soldiers or bots. Set on easy, frag out. It's great for experience to get a quick 70-80 kills, test settings, sensitivities. I use it and I still use it all the time. Not just in Battlefield 5, the same in any other game, in Modern Warfare, for example. I just put a 1v6 on Rust and, just frag and familiarise yourself with the gunplay, the movement mechanics, testing weapon setups, again, sensitivities, it's great. Number 6, talk to other PC players, more experienced players, they've all experimented with settings, senses, anything about PC. I'm sure when asked they will give you the help, give you the advice. And I'm always in the comment section, so if you got anything to ask, I'm always there. I try to answer every comment that I get. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to reply and give my input on it. And also another thing, is in Battlefield there's a lot of clans and platoons, who are always recruiting. There's loads in Battlefield. There's always the Battlefield Discord. There's always players trying to squad up, and discussing things in there, and it's really good. Streams. There's a lot of great creators in the Battlefield Twitch section who don't get seen, who don't get the love. They're all very experienced players. They know what they're talking about. On the side note, there's not a stream that I don't enjoy watching on Twitch. Again, YouTube as well. Great Battlefield creators on there sharing settings, tutorials, tips. It's all there, my dudes. Right, so to wrap up, I'm going to suggest one of my own videos as well, going over the same points, and it's on about how to improve as a player. I do think it's quite relevant for this section of the video, so I'm going to link it up if you want to watch it. Right, so we're going to move over to part 2, section 2 of the video, which is settings. So in this section we're going to be looking at in-game settings, we're going to take a look at a few Windows optimizations, hopefully get you a few more FPS, and then take a look at mouse software, looking at DPI, polling rate, then finish off with some tweaks to Origin as well. Right, so here we are in Windows, and hopefully we can get you a few more FPS. Just to say, obviously when you're gaming you don't want to be running Spotify, running 5 Chrome tabs in the background, anything like that. When you're gaming, you want to be strictly gaming, really, unless the exception of like some recording software or whatever. So, alright, we'll go to search game mode settings. There we go. Leave game mode on for now. Another thing, go up to Xbox Game Bar, turn the game bar off. Captures, again, if using OBS or GeForce Experience, you don't need this. Background recording off, recorded audio off, get it all off. I'll save you a few. Power plan, just type power in the bottom. Choose a power plan. It might already be on balanced, but you want high performance. The thing you do is run Battlefield 5 as an admin. Just go open file, click that, properties, compatibility tab, run this program as an administrator, apply, okay, that's it. That's just good practice for any FPS game. You can see I've got Battlefield 1 as well with admin. MSI Afterburner. Now if you want to download it, you can go Google MSI Afterburner, there you go, top result, bam, and then you download it there. Now that's a different skin to mine, but you can get different skins, but it's all essentially the same stuff. So we'll quickly open it. So right, so there's a few things you can do. First off, just max out the power limit like that. It's perfectly safe. You're just giving it more power. Next one, click on the little cog, settings, go to the fan, enable user-defined software, automatic fan control. That on. The default fan curve is perfectly fine. The reason I would suggest this is because I had a lot of problems with my 1080 Ti where it was thermal throttling, and obviously it gets too hot and it tones down the clock, so you're not getting as much performance. Obviously keeping it cool is better performance, and it's better for your GPU in the long run. As you know, hot temps for a long periods of time gaming, it's not good for the GPU. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into any overclocking or anything like that. I think this is just strictly just basics really, just to get a few more FPS. But if that's something you want to look at at a later date, you know, YouTube, watch videos, a lot of them. So a lot of mice come with their own software. The one that I'm currently using, XM1R, doesn't have any software, and I really like it. But just for the purposes of a video, I plugged in my old Razer Viper, and yeah, here we go. So this is the software. Now a lot of different companies like Logitech, whatever, you know, they can have their own different software. So what you can adjust in here is the DPI, the polling rate, and a few mouse properties. I really like that. So anyway, so this is the DPI, dots per inch. I would recommend just sticking with 800 DPI. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's the in-game sense that is the way you really change your sensitivity. I mean, you can try going 400 or 1600, you know, but it doesn't really matter. The polling rate is the frequency of the data between the mouse and your PC. So on the actual Razer Viper, I can go up to 8,000. I've been trying this for a while, but it does feel sharper, but is it worth it? I don't know, it remains to be seen. But 1,000, which is what I'm currently on with the XM1R, I really like it. And 1,000 is just a good basis to go by. And mouse properties, you click that, open mouse properties, and there's a little setting in here that which you want to turn off. It's under pointer options, and it is enhance pointer precision. You want that off, so untick that, apply, okay. Right, so before we head into in-game settings, we'll just do some Origin optimizations and tweaks and stuff. So you want to open Origin, obviously, and then Origin application settings. Now, mostly I have everything off. Updates off. I have that on for some reason. Just turn it off. Everything else off. Diagnostics all off. I have the cloud save storage because I play on my PC at times. play on my laptop at times, so I like that sort of cross save. Notifications, I have all notifications off. If you squad up with friends and that, you might want a little notification popping up, say who's coming in or chat, whoever's coming in the game or whatever, you know. Origin in game. Now you want this off. This will save you a few FPS. Get that off, and there's another thing you need to do. Go into Game Library, Battlefield 5, Settings, the little cog, Game Properties. You have to tick it under here as well. So you turn it off here. Then that is pretty much it. And we're back in Battlefield 5. Now a lot of this you can just copy your console settings. You know, for example, your minimap settings, you know, your preferences. And also the audio as well. Copy as much as you can. Where the differences lie really are in the controls, video and key binding sections. So, controls. So this is where you input your in-game sense. But we'll be discussing that later in finding your sensitivity section. But for now, if you go to controller tuning, raw mouse input, you want that on. So let's go into video. Full screen, native to your screen resolution. I'm on 1080p, so it's 1080p. I do think 1080p is still relevant. You know, I wouldn't knock it. You'll get more FPS. 1440p is nice, but it takes a lot to run it, and it is expensive as well. FOV, I would say if you run a lower FOV, you might want to take it up a bit, just because PC is generally more quicker and you kind of need that peripheral vision, ideally. Let's get into advanced. DirectX 12, I would suggest turning this off, just because I don't think it's very good in Battlefield 5. I do get better FPS in DirectX 11. You're more than welcome to test this for yourself in the test range or whatever. High dynamic range off. Resolution scale, and I would leave this at 100%. What you can do is do about 5% either way, just to get a bit more visual clarity by going +5, or getting a few extra FPS by going minus to 95. I wouldn't really mess about with it too much. If you really want more FPS, just change resolution, you know. Frame rate limiter, I have this on my monitor refresh rate because it's 240 and I'm very rarely at 240 FPS, so it's basically uncapped. You can unlock your FPS completely. If you're getting more FPS, you can use the tilde key, game time, max variable FPS 0. It will unlock your FPS, but I would suggest capping your FPS, just purely because coming from console, it unlocks 60 FPS or even 120 FPS. I've heard the newer consoles can do that now. You know, a locked 144 is a nice experience and a consistent, smooth experience, you know, similar to console, but obviously it's 144, you know, it's higher FPS. That is, of course, if you're getting that FPS, you know, if your PC can keep a locked 144. If not, you know, you can just run with it uncapped, it'll be fine. Future frame rendering on. From my testing, this gives me more FPS. Like, the FPS is insane from one setting. Now it does say it adds input lag, but you know, the nature of higher FPS negates the input lag added, so higher FPS equals lower input lag, so don't worry about it, just keep it on. Vertical sync, so for short, VSync. If you're not sure what that means, is basically with VSync on, it will lock the FPS to your monitor's refresh rate. So say if you've got 144, it will lock it and sync the frames to 144. If you've got 60 Hz, it'll sync 60 FPS to 60 Hz. Now, the reason you should have it off is because with VSync on, it does create input lag because it's holding frames trying to sync it, and that delay is what creates the input lag, which is why you really want it off. GPU memory restriction: if you have a top end sort of GPU, you want this off. If you've got a lower sort of weaker GPU, I would recommend putting it on, but you have to do your own testing with FPS. Now, Battlefield 5 is a very taxing game. It's a tough game to get high FPS, and especially in relation to other FPS games. It's very tough on the CPU, so to give your PC a better, easier time, I'd suggest running everything on low, more FPS for less input lag. Less input lag is better for aiming and consistency. Also just the nature of higher FPS, you see a lot more, and obviously in an FPS game that's an advantage. Now, I do say that, but I wouldn't dwell on FPS too much. I do think, I'm a victim of this myself. I'm just obsessed with getting like more FPS. Oh man, if I had more FPS, obviously more is better, but it won't make you a 1 KD player into a 6 KD, god. I've played at 60, 144, 200 FPS. I am the same player, although I would say I play better at 144 to 200 keybinds. Now, the great thing about PC is you can pretty much bind anything to the keyboard to whatever you want. Just that personalization is great coming from console. As you know, there's not many buttons on the controller. I remember sacrificing certain buttons in favor of others. Really experiment with your binds, because everyone's different. What works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. I do have a few suggestions. I like crouch mouse side buttons just because controller with the stick, usually have it crouch on the stick, with the right thumb, it works well for me. So I would also say disable the weapon switch on the scroll wheel. I do think it's not a good habit, and just use keyboards 1 to 4 to change weapons, and get used to it. Because the amount of times I've accidentally changed weapons by unknowingly scrolling, it gets old very quick, So I learned the hard way, so I'm going to save you a lot of time there. And that is pretty much everything for the settings. We're now on the final part of the video, which is part 3, section 3, and it's going through finding your sensitivity, or how to find your sensitivity. There's a little disclaimer to this. You have to find your own sensitivity. I can only give you suggestions, point you in the right direction. Think of it like you're in a boat and the current is taking you downriver. I'm just giving you a push in the right direction every now and again. Essentially, you've got to find your own sensitivity, what suits you, because everybody is different. What works for me doesn't work for you, and vice versa. So to explain sensitivity on PC, it's a bit different from console. Sensitivity is worked out as centimeters or inches for a 360. Now, you've probably seen or heard players refer to this, they're saying like, oh, I'm on 30 centimeters for 360, and you're like, what the hell are these dudes talking about? So what that essentially means is it's the distance your sensitivity takes to do a full 360. So like a swipe of your mouse across your mouse pad, that is the distance to do a full 360. Now, there's different ways to work it out. There are websites where you can input your sensitivities and DPI and it works it out for you. Secondly, which is what I use, is just a tape measure. Like so. Just measure it out, keep a note of your sense. I think people get too caught up in the fine numbers when their sensitivity. I think on a day-by-day basis your sensitivity does vary, and it's not exactly, it is just naturally human error. So I wouldn't get overly caught up on it. Just get a rough measure. I play on 30 centimeters for a 360. That's roughly what I play on. And also this will help when talking to other players. You know, it's familiar. They've done their own experimentation and likely to give you some input on it. It's good for discussion and will help you in the long run, as long as you keep note of what you're playing, you know. So, you know, when you're talking to other players, you're like, oh, I'm on 5 centimeter for 360, and they'll be like, whoa, hang on a minute, dude, yeah, that's very fast, you know, it's probably a bit too quick, you might have to slow it down. You know, not many people can play on that, and it's, you know, or you might say, oh, I'm on like 80 centimeters for 360, you know, which is really slow, and people might, you know, and players might say, whoa, that, like, you know, that's really slow, dude. You don't have to play on that, you know, you can half it essentially, you know. Right, so now that we've explained sensitivity, here's how to actually find your sensitivity. Now, a common misconception about PC players is that everybody's using a high sense. It's a high DPI, flicking onto enemies, 6000 DPI, you know, like 50% in game. Now, I admit, I was guilty of this, but I quickly realised that slower is the way. You know, by watching back my old clips, I could see that I'm fighting to keep control. Firstly, when acquiring targets, you know, it was just like constant adjustment, you know, over-aiming, under-aiming. You know, I just couldn't stay on target. Constant readjustment. It was just too high. So in principle, you know, your sensitivity should be at a point where it's so easy to acquire targets and remain on target that you don't even think about it. That's the point that I want you to get to. It should be easy and efficient, and this does work for any FPS game, not just Battlefield. You know, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Apex, Valorant, whatever. Apply the same logic. It should be easy and efficient. So this clip playing in the background is me and Combined Arms, which I mentioned earlier in the general tip section, and it's a good way to test your sensitivities. And as a demonstration here, I'm playing on a sensitivity which is 3 times faster than my sensitivity. So we're going to watch that clip back, but before we do, I just want to mention 2 points to keep in mind for finding your sensitivity or for watching this clip. You know, it's number 1 is control. Are you keeping control of the sense? Constant adjustment. Are you over-aiming, under-aiming? Number 2, acquiring, remaining on target. You know, it should be easy and efficient with very little thought. I think if you're thinking about aiming a lot, it says to me that something's not right. Aiming should be instinctive with very little thought. So we're going to play it in the background again, and just I'm going to try and explain what's going on here. And as you can see, you know, I'm really struggling here to keep control, and that's not good. Like I said earlier, it should be easy and efficient. You know, essentially it's just too high. It's just too high for me. And my ADS is pretty good, but you know, I can see that I'm really sort of struggling with centering and all that sort of thing, and it's just really not good. You can see, you know, I'm hitting some flicks there, but it's not consistent. It's really not consistent. Constantly correcting it. Just constantly over-aiming, under-aiming, and you know, essentially, you know, I'm fighting it. I'm fighting to remain control, and essentially that's where it's not good. You might think, oh well, damn, I got a kill there, but you know, I'm really fighting it. And this is my sense. You know, I play at 7% in game, 800 DPI. You know, I'm in control. It's easy. It's efficient. You're more than welcome to try my sense, but like I said, you know, you need to find what works for you. But what I do think is, you know, other people's settings and sensitivities, it does give you a baseline to work from, especially when you're very new to PC. It does help out a lot, you know, and you just fine tune it and go, okay, so I think I like it, but man, if I could tweak it a bit, or I think I need to go higher, or I need to go slower, you know, just like, you're going to have to experiment. It took me months to find and fine-tune this sensitivity where I'm comfortable with it, and I perform well with. and this will be the case for you. So when experimenting, you'll know if you don't like a sense like straight away. For example, like I've changed ADS speeds from 100 to 50%, within seconds. I'm like, no, this isn't for me, just change it back immediately, So as for a suggestion for sensitivity, I would recommend 800 DPI, like we see earlier going through the mouse software. A lot of players use it. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, it's the in-game sense that matters. But as a new player coming from console, 800 DPI is a good start. Is DPI something you could experiment with later on down the line? Yeah, you can, but for now, just 800, is pretty good. As for your sensitivity, I would recommend a range of 20 centimeters to 40 centimeters to 360. So in-game sense, a range from say 3% in-game to 14% in-game. Remember when finding your sense, it has to be easy and efficient staying on target. You don't want to be constantly readjusting. One last point is you may want to experiment with your ADS sensitivity. Now at first, just copy a console sense. So say if you run 100% ADS, put that in, see how you like it. But the reason why I say you may want to experiment with your ADS sensitivity is because aim assist slowdown is kind of like a sensitivity itself. Obviously on PC, mouse and keyboard, there's no aim assist slowdown. So many console players who run 100% ADS, it doesn't really feel like a true 100% because your aim slows when aim assist appears. So in fact, the console experience when you ADS is kind of like two sensitivities. 100% is the true ADS sense, and then when slowdown appears, it's another slower sensitivity. So what I'm trying to say, if you're still with me, so you may find initially 100% ADS speed, it seems too quick and you might have to lower it. And this is from my experience as well. It's something I just got used to. I think if you ran a slower ADS speed, say 50%, for example, it may be less of an issue. But it's basically just for if you run 100% ADS, it may feel different from your console. So you might have to just have a slower ADS speed. I hope I'm making sense. And so to wrap up, hopefully this has helped you, in at least one way or another. Whether you're completely new to PC or whether you've dabbled a bit or whether you're an experienced player just having a look. It's this sort of video that I've wanted to do for a long time, try and help people with it, because I spent a lot of time making mistakes, trial and error, and hopefully it just makes your life easier. But there's one point that I didn't mention earlier, is remember to enjoy it. At the end of the day, it is only a game, and if you don't enjoy it, what's the point in doing anything in life? And thank you for watching. It's a video that took me a long time to make, and I hope you enjoyed it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer in the comments. If you'd like to subscribe, please do. If you like it, that's great. And I'll see you boys in the next one, I guess.